welcome to this service of St Andrew's on the Terrace in Te Whanganui Atara, Wellington, Aotearoa, New Zealand. Whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever you believe, whatever you do not believe, you are welcome, and we are glad to have you with us. Let's begin. We gather in our homes today to honour and affirm life. We come to consider again being the change we wish to see in the world. This morning we acknowledge the challenges of faith, religion and life, especially during this COVID-19 pandemic. And we celebrate a journey filled with new thoughts and commitments, born out of critique and letting go. This morning we celebrate the unfolding of the universe and our ability and possibilities for creating brighter and gentler futures for our communities after COVID-19. The symbols of life are all around us: light and noise, infants and adults, birds and animals, colours and movement, words of goodwill and songs of joy. May we recognise these symbols as life-affirming. May we seek to renew them every day. May we be inspired to share them generously. As we gather, apart yet together, may we again commit as individuals and as a community to the values and ideals that would contribute to the transformation of this world. May each of us undertake again the appraisal and joy of living out what is dear to us, what truly advances and invites compassion, grace, forgiveness, kindness, justice and love to flourish and to transform. May we abide in the assurance that goodness goes on, even in our wavering, in our waffling, in our doubts and in our questions. This is our prayer. May it be so. And now we're going to sing together the hymn Loving Spirit. We'll sing just verses 1 and 4. Loving Spirit, you have chosen me to be. Let's pray together the Jesus Prayer. Eternal Spirit, life giver, pain bearer, love maker, source of all that is and that shall be, Father and Mother of us all, loving God, in whom is heaven, the hallowing of your name echo throughout the universe. The way of your justice be followed by the people of the world. Your heavenly will be done by all created beings. Your commonwealth of peace and freedom sustain our hope and come on earth. With the bread we need for today, feed us. In the hurts we absorb from one another, forgive us. In times of temptation and test, strengthen us. From trials too great to endure, spare us. From the grip of all that is evil, free us. For you reign in the glory of the power that is love, now and forever. Amen. Now we're going to cross to Kira, who with her grandmother Sandra is going to light the rainbow candle for us. After that, we'll have the sign of the peace as usual, and then Ross Scott will do the readings for us with the gospel reading from John and 2 poems as contemporary readings.
Lighting the rainbow room candle is an important part of the St Andrew's tradition. Tony and I are lucky to have our granddaughters Kira and Emmeline in our bubble, and Kira is going to light the rainbow room candle for us. So Kira, we're going to take the light from the big candle. Good girl. And light the rainbow candle. Bring it right over here. That's it. Like that.
That's great.
And then take it over here to blow.
The readings for Sunday the 17th of May. The Gospel reading, John 6, 1 to 21. The feeding of 5,000. After this, Jesus went to the other side of the Sea of Galilee, also called the Sea of Tiberias. A large crowd kept following him because they saw the signs he was doing for the sick. Jesus went up to the mountain and sat down there with his disciples. Now the Passover, the festival of the Jews, was near. When he looked up and saw a large crowd coming towards him, Jesus said to Philip, "Where are we to buy bread for these people to eat?" He said this to test him, for he himself knew what he was going to do. Philip answered him, 6 months' wages would not buy enough bread for each of them to get a little. One of the disciples, Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, said to him, "There is a boy here who has 5 barley loaves and 2 fishes. But what are they among so many people?" Jesus said, "Make the people sit down." Now there was a great deal of grass in the place, so they sat down, about 5,000 in all. Then Jesus took the loaves, and when he had given thanks, he distributed them to those who were seated. So also the fish, as much as they wanted. When they were satisfied, he told his disciples, "Gather up the fragments left over, so that nothing may be lost." So they gathered them up, and from the fragments of the 5 barley loaves, left by those who had eaten, they filled 12 baskets. When the people saw the sign that he had done, they began to say, "This is indeed the prophet who is come into the world." When Jesus realized that they were about to take him by force and make him king, he withdrew again to the mountain by himself. When evening came, his disciples went down to the sea, got into a boat, and started across the sea to Capernaum. It was now dark, and Jesus had not yet come to them. The sea became rough because strong wind was blowing. When they had rowed about 3 or 4 miles, they saw Jesus walking on the sea, coming near the boat, and they were terrified. But he said to them, "It is I. Do not be afraid." Then they wanted to take him into the boat, and immediately the boat reached the land towards which they were going. A poem by Hare Williams from his book Karanga. I can still hear the echo of children laughing on the beach. In the swirling water, we dug in the sand. And still laughing, collected fat pippies from their beds. On the shore we lit a fire and placed a sheet of iron on top. We sung as we waited, rubbing smoke from our eyes. With burnt fingers we scooped juicy pippies from sizzling shells, no matter our burnt fingers and sand. On the back of the old truck, we were too tired to join in the sleepy songs. When we stopped, the echo remained. Turn now. And from Anne Powell, from Windsong. Some people know what it's like to wait for hip replacements, for a bus in the drizzle, or a job, for a phone to ring, or benefit day, or enough white sliced bread, for TB, for a rent collector, or glue hair to skip the house, for the next quick fix, slow foxtrot, or flight to stop, or love without bruises, and others don't.
Almost every day during lockdown, I've looked out my windows and seen people fishing on the beach, yes, even in level 4. Apparently there are plenty of good kahawai out here at Eastbourne. It's also a great spot for pipi, scallops, mussels and pawa. But perhaps I'm giving secrets away. All year round we see whole families in the bays, up to their thighs in water, digging in the sand for shellfish, and people diving for mussels, pawa and scallops. It reminds me of my childhood family expeditions around the Waitemata and Manukau harbours to fish and collect shellfish in 1950s and 1960s Auckland. I imagine there's probably not much marine life there now. I think my family did it for the pure pleasure. My English master mariner father loved the coast and he loved seafood. I inherited both of those loves. Here in Eastbourne, I sometimes stop and chat to the people fishing and diving, or at least I did before the lockdown. There's a mix of those who do it because they love it as a leisure activity, and those who do it because they need to feed their families. I've wondered about the families who couldn't fish during level 4 and how they coped for food. Nadine Anhura's words in her commentary on how the lockdown highlights glaring inequalities in Aotearoa made me think further. She wrote, "Follow the rules. Kia homaru te haere, queue outside countdown for 2 hours, but don't collect pipis in the beds that sustained our tipuna for generations." Can you feel the loss in that sentence? The disempowerment? The hunger? It leads me to this reflection. I've gone off-piste from the lectionary this week, but have stayed with the Gospel of John. The loaves and fishes spoke to me, partly because of my location by the sea, but also because I could see a weaving of this story with the 8 points of progressive Christianity. Are you aware of these? Katrina sent them to me recently, and they pretty much fit with my thinking. If you haven't seen them, they basically affirm Jesus as a teacher for us to follow and walk as he did, with radical compassion, inclusion, and bravery to confront injustice. So, Jesus, fishing, injustice, and food led me to the story of the loaves and fishes for today. The story is clearly significant for the Christian tradition. It appears in all 4 Gospels and twice in Mark and Matthew. So, to the story. On this day, Jesus sailed from Capernaum to the eastern side of the Sea of Galilee, about 6.5 kilometres away, a bit less than the distance from Queen's Wharf in Wellington to Matu, or Soames Island, in the harbour. Many people were on the move for Passover, the feast associated with Moses leading the Israelites out of Egypt. Word had got around about Jesus' earlier actions when he turned water into wine at the wedding at Cana, healed the Gentile official's son, and gave new life to the disabled man. A crowd rushed around the shore to follow him. Jesus and his disciples walked up to a large grassy plain where they sat and watched the crowd moving towards them. It was the end of the day and the crowds were hungry, so Jesus turned to Philip, who's a local, and asked, "Where are we to buy bread so that these people may eat?" Andrew pipes up, that he has found a boy with 5 barley loaves and 2 fish. The boy is willing to share his food despite not having much. His fish would have been small fish, about the size of sardines, that swarmed in the Sea of Galilee. His barley bread was the humblest of breads. Barley was cattle food. Barley bread was looked down upon. But Jesus took the boy's offerings. He blessed them and distributed them among the people. Amazingly, according to the story, the people ate their fill, and after that there still remained sufficient to fill another 12 baskets. It's an extraordinary story. Remember that John Spong urges us against reading the gospel literally. But the fact that this story survived in various forms 6 times in the Gospels tells us it is significant. But in what way? We already know that the writers of John's Gospel take stories from the Jesus tradition. They mould them to make statements about Jesus for Jewish Christians in first century Jerusalem who were despairing at the split in their community and the fact that Jesus had not returned as promised. Spong asserts that these stories about the loaves and fishes, Spong asserts that in these stories about the loaves and fishes, John wraps Jesus in traditions about Moses to strengthen Jesus' importance and significance to the Jewish community. Just as Yahweh enabled Moses to feed the hungry Israelites in the desert by raining bread from heaven, Jesus feeds 5,000 with a couple of fish and a few loaves of bread from a small boy. Immediately after this story, Jesus walks on water. Just as God parts the Red Sea for Moses to lead the Israelites in Exodus from Egypt, Jesus also demonstrates power over water. The gospel writer uses images of daily necessities like bread, water, light, and life from the Torah to reassure the Jewish Christians of Jesus' significance. So that was for them, but what about for us today in Aotearoa, New Zealand? Can we look to this story for some guidance on how to work towards peace and justice among all people? Can we take the loaves and fishes story as a commentary on wealth, poverty and inequality in the world today, in our own country, in Aotearoa? There are likely to be academics out there who cringe at this approach, but I will surmise anyway and share my favourite interpretation of the story based on the principles of progressive Christianity. Travellers would usually take food with them when they set out on their journeys. Some of the crowd at this time, just before the Passover, probably had food. A small boy did. Maybe many relied on hospitality along the way. Perhaps those who did have food were not willing to share. Could it be that the boy's generosity inspired others to share so that all could eat their fill and still there were leftovers? If a miracle occurred here, it could be that the small boy's humble offering changed hearts, opened them to the needs of others. So too, perhaps this story of a child's generosity with what little he had can inspire us to open our wallets if we are able, and our hearts, not only to provide food for those who are hungry, but also to accept people who are different from us, and even be generous towards ourselves about things we struggle with. We've been through tough times with the lockdown, and there are tough times ahead for many economically as well as in other ways. We all have gifts to offer, however humble they may be or they may seem to us. Let's be like the boy who had so little, yet shared his meagre portion. Let's share what we can to work towards peace and justice among all people and all life on earth. Amen. Now we're going to sing together a very appropriate hymn after those words. Take my gifts and let me love you. time in the service that we take up our offering. Let's pray. These gifts we offer, of money or time or ourselves, express our deep desire to transform our world into one in which all people may know love, security, respect, may have enough food for their bellies, a warm place to rest their heads, and time to enjoy life. So may it be. Amen. Now we're going to cross to Sandra Kirby for prayers of the people and the circle of prayer and the St Andrew's prayer. And after that, we're going to enjoy a recording of the Queen Margaret Chorale singing For Me to Dare by composer David Childs. Childs wrote the song to commemorate the Queen Margaret College centenary in 2019. But he said he wrote the song, which is about women's strength, about all women in society and for all women in society. Enjoy.
Kia ora. My name is Sandra Kirby. I'm a member of St Andrew's on the Terrace. Let us pray. As you already know, in our household we have small children living with us. And as part of that, we've spent a lot of time thinking about the characters in Frozen. And I'm going to use some of the lessons from Frozen as part of our prayer. Let us pray. Wairua tapu, help us to take a lot of opportunities to learn new things and to remember the things that are important. Help us to find that we can see the Word of God in the Word around us and in those around us. And let us, with Anna and Elsa and the characters from Frozen, take on some of life's lessons. Let us remember that some things never change, like the love of family, like the community that needs us all of the time. Help us to see that transformation can happen in unlikely times and that we grow through experiences that seem traumatic at the time. Help us to know that fear can be managed, fear can be dangerous, but can be lived with. Help us when moving through uncertainty to know that we can do the next right thing and that the next right thing will lead us to a better place. Help us to remember that we need to be aware of each other and the whole community, that our life is interconnected with other people's lives and our lands are connected to other people's lands. These messages are universal and they help us to find the love of Jesus and the love of our family. During this week, we celebrated International Nurses Day. We give thanks for nurses, and I invite you to think of a nurse in our community, St Andrew's on the Terrace, in your family whānau, in our wider community, and to name them and hold them in your hearts. We hold our candle for you. Nurses tell us that you never work alone, that it takes a team to create a healthy community, a vibrant community, and that health is more than the absence of illness. Help us to be healthy and to keep each other healthy. I invite you to use this moment to think about the people that you would normally have in your hearts at this time. This is our time for the prayers in the book. And we join in the circle of prayer. We think today of the people of Andorra and the Conference of European Churches. We remember the detainees of Manus and Nauru Islands, yearning that their cases be resolved. And in New Zealand, we remember those in Parliament, and today we name Jenny Marcroft and Ron Mark, list MPs. Here in the Central Presbytery, we pray for the leaders and people of Knox Presbyterian Church in Dannevirke, and the Worldwide Church, we pray for the Armenian Apostolic Church. We close our prayers with the prayer for St Andrew's. Please make this a prayer for your people and your place, as well as for ours. We say together, renew your people, God, and renew our life in this place. Give us a new spirit of unity with those of all faiths and a new spirit of love towards all people. Bless the city in which we live, that it may be a place where honest dealing, good government, and the desire for beauty and the care for others flourish. Bless this church, that what we know of your will may become what we do, and what we believe the strong impulse of our worship and work. Amen. Here I stand, for it is me to dare, for me to dare, as the others dream, the others, as the others dream. Pity on bewildered fools, on bewildered have I joy safe to stand fast. Some will love me, some will mock, for I am young. I will be heard. I've much to say. Live courage and with hope, I'll lead the way.
Thank you for being with us today. It will probably be at least another week or two before we gather together in the church. You can refer to the e-newsletter in which Lynn and Katrina will have written about plans for the future. But having said that, it won't be long before we can meet together again in person, and I look forward to meeting many of you, all of you who can be present. And now for the final blessing. As we part now, even though we haven't been physically present together, let us remember that we are together in spirit, that we are part of a community and we are loved. And we're just an email or phone call away from someone who will listen to us, because that is what we as followers of Jesus are about. He told his disciples to love one another. These past weeks have been difficult times, and we hope things will become easier and that soon we can meet again in person. In the meantime, here's a blessing from Wellington poet Anne Powell. May the soft light at the end of the day heal you. May the purr of the sea on the shells of the beach heal you. May the dance of the wind on the grass of the dunes heal you. May the maker of water and air and fire heal you who walk the earth. Amen.